The Center for Development of Museums, Heritage and Culture, or shortly MUZEH Lab, is a community-based center located in Durrës. It's one of the biggest cities after Tirana, that is capital of Albania, and has this community-based center approach and also a museum-based approach, and is a hybrid format, aiming to work closely with communities for increasing cultural awareness in society and turning them into future actors of social change and their designation as European citizens. From today, we will start 12 talks with UK museum experts in topics of accessible and inclusive museums that will take place online. And I'm very happy to start these talks with Marianne Scahill-Pape and Hannah Pillai that will have a presentation on inclusive youth arts at Attenborough Arts Centre. Marianne is Learning and Outreach Manager at Attenborough Arts Centre and has an experience of over 20 years as a creative producer, artist, and art professional. And she has developed Attenborough excellent learning and outreach offer over the last 10 years. While Hannah is a practicing artist and coordinator that delivers the Inclusive Youth Arts Program, supporting 100 children with SENS in our communities here in Leicester. So, words on you now, Marianne and Hannah. Thank you for today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us and for your time. I hope it's okay that we're going to speak in English because yeah, that's my first language, so I hope that's okay. I'm just going to share our presentation as we're going along. Let's hope this works now. Optimize video clip. Want that one as well? Yeah. Okay, this one. Let's hope this works. Can't see anybody.
Maybe if you click here. No? Okay. We can't see anyone anymore.
What happened there? Let's just unshare that. Sorry, we'll be there in a second. Okay. Maybe it is that. Let's try that again. Share. There we go. Right. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leicester. We are in our gallery office at Attenborough Arts Centre, right in the heart of the city. And we are really delighted to share some of our work today with you and open up a bit of the East Midlands, which is right in the middle of England, just to talk about how we work and what we do and how we make our work as inclusive and as accessible as possible to children and young people who are taking part in our galleries and exhibitions. Hello. So this is our beautiful centre. So if you can see the bit with the banners, that's our contemporary art galleries, and then the half of the building behind the railing, it's all one building. But that part is our theatre space, our cafe and our shop. We've got a shop where we sell work by local artists and companies, and also our art studio. So it's a really bustling, busy space, and we have a beautiful sculpture courtyard out the back there. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk a little bit more about who we are. We're going to talk about how we, what we mean by access and inclusion. We're going to talk a bit about Leicester. We're going to look at some of our underpinning principles in our practice. We're going to look a little bit at disability awareness, just so that we're just setting the context for our work. Then we're going to talk a little bit about our Inclusive Youth Arts Programme, share some resources that we've developed and some that we use. We're going to talk about how we fund this work, because it is all externally funded. And we're going to share some more information. I hope that's okay. Okay, so who are we? We are the University of Leicester's Arts Centre. We are the part of the university which is publicly accessible and open to everybody. As part of a university and an institution like that, it can feel like it's not open to everybody, but the Arts Centre is very much for everybody, and we work really hard to make sure that we're as open and inclusive as possible. So we have 4 contemporary art galleries with about 3 or 4 exhibitions a year that rotate, which often take 2 to 3 years to develop. We have a theatre space where we produce work in-house, but also take small-scale touring and work that's international, also across all the performing arts: music, dance, theatre, spoken word, poetry, all sorts. We also have a garden, which you've just seen, and art studios, and we're open to everybody. Oh yeah, our galleries are free as well, which was important. I forgot to say that in my notes, but yeah, our galleries are free, so yay. Our public programme includes performances, which I just mentioned. We also work with the city festivals, of which there are many. So we have a comedy festival, which is really well respected, a children's arts festival called Spark. We have festivals for Black History Month and Diwali. So we're really connected with what else is happening in the cultural life of Leicester. We have a whole programme of events and exhibitions which we produce. We also have a programme called Creative Learning, which is artist-led courses and workshops here at Attenborough, open to everybody, and it's very much about developing skills and expertise in art practice. Then the Learning and Outreach programme, which is us, includes a tailored programme of accessible cultural activity for schools, communities, families, children, young people, and yeah, we're going to talk a lot about that. We also have a programme for public engagement with research. We've literally just had our programme for this year published. The Creative Fellowship Programme, Creative Engagement Fellowships, which bring together artists and academics to find new ways to share the findings of their research in a really inclusive and accessible way. We're also a community venue, so we host regular sessions for groups such as supported by the NHS, which includes adult mental health service users. It might include our learning disabled theatre company, Movers. We also have a children's choir that meet here, a whole load of things that happen which are supporting our local community to make and produce great art. I'm going to show you a little film now. Hopefully the sound will work. And Ez is going to go like this, if she can hear it. But here it is anyway. It was 1 minute long, and it just gives you a little bit of insight into our work. So that was just a little snapshot of what we do. So our team consists of 4 members of staff. So Hannah, myself, Bob and Caroline. We're delivering on key projects. That's our core team that are based in this office. We also have a brilliant team of gallery assistant facilitators who are from all across the city, some students, some not students. anyone really who wants to get more involved in delivering great arts activity in our galleries, and we provide training and support for that. We work with associate artists, so they could be local artists or national or even international artists, sometimes connected with our exhibition program, sometimes not, but we do have an associate artist scheme. We also have ambassador teachers. So these are teaching professionals who are based in a number of different schools and different types of settings, and they work really closely with us to help inform our practice, share our practice, work with us, and co-produce activity together, and just to make sure that our work is as relevant for formal learning settings as possible. And they're really amazing teachers. And we have some money that we give them to release them from curriculum time so they can really get to grips with cultural education in their settings. We also work with young people as curators, producers, project managers through our Next Gen Creatives project. We also work in partnership. So our work would not be possible without making friends. We make a lot of friends across the city, across the country, trying to find ways to make things happen when we have limited resources. Partnership working is a great way of doing that, but also helps you make friends. So who we work with, as I mentioned, we work with all kinds of schools, and in the UK we have primary and secondary schools. We have special education schools, which are called SEND schools, and we have a very amazing project in Leicester called SENsory Atelier, which is working with 9 of these settings, which are really leading the field in terms of access and inclusion for people with complex needs and disabilities, but still delivering the 14 subjects that you need in the curriculum. So it's really brilliant work going on there. And we also work with colleges and universities, and so FE means further education and HE is higher education. So to clarify that. We work with communities, whether that's people or places. So we really make sure our work is tailored to the needs of people or the needs and requirements of a particular locality. So I'll talk a bit more about that later. We work with children and young people, which we've said a lot, but we really are passionate about children and young people. They are the future, they are the now, they are brilliant, and they teach us so much about the world. It's unreal. So it's a real privilege to work with children and young people. We work with their families too. Having space for families to take part in things together is so important. It's a real part of developing community. But also, you know, this isn't about us providing childcare, although that is important sometimes. It's providing space for parents, carers, children to take part in things as equals. And we have some really incredible work that we do with our family gallery learning programme as part of that. We also work with researchers and academics, not just this university, but from others, finding new ways to, oh, sorry. That's my phone going off. Something really urgent. I'll switch that off. All right. Who else do we work with? Oh yeah, that's it. Sorry. So we believe that every child has the right to cultural engagement, individuality, freedom of expression, safe spaces to learn. And we align this with the UN Convention for the Rights of the Child. This really does underpin all of our work. We also believe that art is a universal language and practice that can express culture, emotional literacy, empathy, and more nuanced forms of human communication and condition. It's about being in the world. It's about finding ways to express that, which transcends different constructs and boundaries. It's visual, spatial, sensory, kinesthetic, political, cultural, time-based, and art can also be embodied, performed, and explored, which makes it a perfect means for people to learn and engage with the world around them in ways that other disciplines and other subjects cannot reach. We also believe that process is the most important thing, that engagement must be differentiated to the needs of participants, and that when true agency is enabled, the quality of cultural experiences can have a lasting, positive impact on the lives of our participants. So that's where we're coming from with our programme. So the Attenborough Arts Centre has a series of strategic objectives as well. So this isn't, it's just to make sure that this is really clear. This is our business. This is our part of our business plan, and this is the strategic objectives that come with that. So that is that the arts are accessible and inclusive for everybody, that children and young people are empowered through the arts and are the experts of their lived experiences. We work in partnership to develop audiences and to develop work. We have a workforce development programme with artists and teachers. We develop best practice, advocacy and knowledge sharing, things like this, which is great. We also we want to increase capacity for authentic engagement in the arts. So in terms of accessibility, what we mean by that here is this is inclusive of all products, devices, services, vehicles and environments. And we're referencing the UN Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities for this. By access, we mean physical access, how people actually physically get into places. We also mean access of communication. How is information given to people? How can it be tailored to meet their needs? We also mean learning and sensory access. So if someone has a sensory impairment, what do we need to do to make sure that they can access in the same way as everybody else the content of our exhibitions? We also mean online and offline access or in-person access. Not everyone has a phone, not everyone has a laptop. How do we make work accessible to people if they can't access it through online methods? We also include social accessibility here as well. I mean, we've just been through this horrendous pandemic and some places are still going through it. And the lack of social interaction has become a real issue and again, a barrier, something we want to address through our work here. There is also political access. There's all sorts of issues there. Economic barriers are also a very important factor, particularly at the moment with the cost of living crisis happening. So a little bit of information about Leicester. All of our work responds to the local urgencies of our city. We do this through a lot of consultation, research, talking to people, making friends, and generally researching to make sure that our work is of purpose and meaningful to the people of Leicester, that it represents them and who they are. Leicester is ranked 10th lowest out of all local authorities in England for engagement in the arts, which is a really shocking statistic, but not a surprising one in terms of the history of the city and how it has been a lack of funding and investment over the years. Leicester is also amongst one of the most deprived local authorities, particularly affecting children and young people. 16% of Leicester's 0 to 15-year-olds reside in the most deprived 5% of areas nationally. So this just demonstrates some of the challenges that we are seeking to address through our programme here at Attenborough. Because of that, we target some of our work when we talked about the communities that we work with, people and places. So these are some of the places where we are targeting this activity. And that means delivering work in those communities with partners, providers, community centres, and then also working to bring those communities into our centre. So those localities are different wards, Highfields, New Parks and St Matthews. We also want to challenge underrepresentation and barriers to engagement across the city and the cultural sector. The arts are for everybody, and it's finding ways to meet people where they are, to make sure that they see themselves in our work. That is really important. One of the ways that we do that is through Leicester's Cultural Education Partnership, the City Classroom. We're one of the founding partners of the City Classroom, and it's basically a membership network of cultural organisations, artists, teachers, providers, anyone with an interest in developing the cultural offer in the city for children and young people. And it's a brilliant thing. So, I'm not going to go through all of these in lots of detail because that's a whole other presentation. but I just wanted to give you a snapshot of the breadth of work that we're doing. This is essentially around 30 projects we're delivering at any one time, just in our team, which is a lot for 4 people. And obviously we can't do it on our own. So we have we draw on as much expertise, energy and passion that we possibly can to deliver this work. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the principles and practice, some of the things that we reference in our work. We look at the disability models, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about in a second, just to look at the theory that is informing what we do. This includes participation theory. So many of you will be familiar with this in the museum sector already, looking at Hart's ladder of participation. We also look at how our activity supports the well-being of our participants, and we monitor that through systems such as the Leuven scale, which is a way of measuring how someone is feeling at the start of the session, midway, and at the end. And then you can track the impact that work has had on that person's well-being. We're really inspired by Reggio Emilia. Reggio children and Loris Malaguzzi are just absolutely phenomenal, and we're really lucky to be able to go over there in the spring and to take 9 teachers with us. We're really excited to take 9 teachers from Leicester to Italy to really understand the social pedagogy that has been developed through the Reggio Emilia approach, and how we can apply some of those principles and best practice in our work in formal settings such as special schools and where there's formal curricula. So we're really inspired by the Reggio approach, and again that is across the board. We're really inspired by that in other areas of our work, not just in schools. We're really interested and informed by best practice working with people with special educational needs and disabilities. And some of these techniques we have developed through consultation with teachers, families, partners, methods such as intensive interaction, which is a way of communicating. Again, a whole of the presentation, but there is a lot of research on intensive interaction, and we've found it a phenomenal tool, particularly for non-verbal visitors to our setting, as a way of really helping people to feel present and engaged and creative in our activities. We also deliver through an emergent pedagogy, which means that a lot of our activity is open-ended. It leaves space for people to respond and create as they're going along. It responds to the interests and fascinations of our participants and their culture and who they are. It's not about colouring inside the lines, it's about removing the lines altogether and just having all the colours. We also build in reflection time, so space to think about and reflect on the activity that has gone before, making sure there are traces for people to find so they can come back to the learning that they've experienced, and really understanding that the gallery is the third teacher in the room, and the importance of the environment as a space for learning is again informed by the Reggio approach. Personalised access is kind of a bit of a buzzword, but it really just means meeting people where they are on that day, who they are, what they need, and making activity tailored to them. We're only as accessible as the next person that walks through the door and their unique suite of needs, and it's finding ways and strategies to devise to develop our activity so that it can be accessible to everybody. And also just acknowledging and recognising that people are not empty vessels to have art poured into and practice to be poured into. Children are the experts of their world, and if we meet them where they are, then we can do amazing things together and learn amazing things together. So, yeah. How we deliver our activity. So as I mentioned before, we operate through a social pedagogy of learning, which is again informed by the Reggio approach, but just based on the idea that it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to run a school, it takes all of us to pull together to support people. You know, we don't learn in isolation. And when we do try that, it's horrible. So we don't like it. So we have the following values at the heart of our practice. We are person-centered. So that means we really do meet people where they are, and we work to build bridges to find ways to work with them. That is particularly important for people with sensory or processing needs, making sure that all activity is for them and tailored to them is crucial. Again, this open and emergent activity, which creates space for experimentation and creativity and space for the unexpected, which is art. We bring people together, so providing arts and cultural activity that is social, collaborative and safe. We want to represent and amplify local people. We want to employ local artists, and we want to celebrate the breadth of cultural art forms represented in our city. We want to ensure equality and meaningful representation, differentiating all activity where required. So quality assurance and due diligence is absolutely paramount. We could not do anything without really thorough due diligence, health and safety, and really strong project management practices. It's all the stuff that you don't see, which makes stuff run really smoothly. We're really diligent about that. So that's just one of the things that we do. Yeah, and so enriching and extending the depth of engagement through partnerships. So what I mean by that is we can't just deliver in isolation. We bring together as many people as we can to just find more opportunities for people to engage with us. Sorry. Oh yes, and responding to best practice and research. Okay, so I'm really aware that there are different perceptions about disability around the world, but I just thought it would be useful potentially to look at what we mean here in Leicester by disability awareness and some of the models of disability that we use here. So the medical model of disability assumes that a person is a list of things that need fixing. It locates the problem of disability with the individual. Now, this is a really problematic starting point. It creates barriers where there don't need to be barriers, but it does provide a really strong starting point for artistic, political and social reaction or reinterpretation. It's also the starting point for a lot of legislation to be developed and also a lot of activism. I'm just going to have a little cough. The medical model, again, like I say, is a starting point, but it's a problematic one. Now we move to the social model of disability. Now the social model locates the issue of disability with the world around the disabled person. So this is basically saying that the world disables as people. There is a lot of debate around this. It is a flexible model. And it's very much about if we can make the world accessible, then it removes the barriers to access that disabled people experience. So this is where we're coming from with the social model. Yeah, so it's not the individual's limitations of whatever kind which are the cause of the problem, but society's failure to provide appropriate services to adequately ensure the needs of disabled people are fully taken into account. Now, there is another model that we operate at Attenborough, which is the affirmative model of disability. And this takes the social model to another level. It's basically saying that disability is a culture. Disability is a way of life. It's who I am as a person. It's me as a unique individual and all that makes me, not as something to be fixed or treated or put in a box. We are all unique individual beings, and this should be celebrated. And so this is very much a model that we align with at Attenborough, the affirmative model of disability, which celebrates the unique opportunities and qualities of everybody that comes through the door. Aaron Williamson is a British artist who happens to be deaf. And I love this quote that he said, why had all the doctors told me that I was losing my hearing and not a single one told me I was gaining my deafness? And I think this is a beautiful illustration of the affirmative model of disability, because again, it looks at disability as a culture, as a superpower, as a way of being in the world, which can be celebrated. Okay, so again, as museum professionals, I'm sure you're really familiar with participation theory, but I just thought it would be useful to include a slide here just to let you just sort of know a little bit about the things that we're considering at all levels of planning, things that we're measuring against. So Maslow's hierarchy of need is a really great principle for all of our programming, because people cannot take part, they cannot create, they cannot invent if their basic human needs are not met. And that includes a safe place to be. It means having people that understand and appreciate them, that they could feel valued and supported in that space, that they have the time and space that they need to work in the best way that works for them. And this is just a model that we find really useful at Attenborough. I've also included Hart's ladder of participation, which I'm sure again you're really familiar with. But this is again making sure that it's about checking our practice, that due diligence. Is this activity going to be tokenistic? Is this activity going to be about decorating? Or is it going to really amplify the voices of our participants? So it's just a way of checking back against the things that we developed to make sure that children and young people and all of our participants are valued as leaders and creators in our activity, that they co-produce work with us and that they share the decision-making process. Again, people are not empty vessels for us to do art too. This is about bringing people with us and being creative together. Oh, so I'm not going to talk anymore. Hannah's going to take over.
Hello. My name's Hannah, just in case you really and I'm just going to very quickly talk about...
Hi, Anna. We can hear you very well.
You can't hear me. Oh,
you have to get closer.
Okay.
Sorry.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's better now.
Better. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the Inclusive Youth Arts Programme, which is a project that I manage. A lot of the things that underpin it has already been mentioned by Marianne. So I'm just going to talk about what it is and the impact that it has. So the Inclusive Youth Arts Programme is specifically for children and young people with complex needs and disabilities who have the least access to the arts, and it provides access to high quality cultural activity. And these activities take place outside of school time, and they include workshops, performances, access to our exhibitions, and all the activity is tailored specifically to individual needs of those children. The programme has been running for 7 years now, and it has been funded by BBC Children in Need for 6 years, and the Peter Salby Foundation for a year, and now the Arts Council. We work with around 100 families a year, so we have 100 families on our programme, and over the last 6 years, that's been around 300 different individual families. What's really unique about the programme is that we work with very small groups of children, so that the workshops can be tailored really specifically to different needs. Our activities take place, I've already said, outside of school time, but we have around 3 activities per month. And our approach is very much it's not one size fits all. So the activities might work for some children, young people. So for instance, we might have something that works really well for children on the autistic spectrum, and then we might have a workshop that's specifically for children with sensory needs. So the program's very varied, so that we're trying to really increase access to the arts for children that are not experiencing these things elsewhere. We also have annual events such as our SENsory Garden Party, which is an all-day event for children and their families, with loads of different activities. It's like a festival that has been specifically created for children with complex needs and disabilities. And we work very closely with highly skilled artists, and these artists are specifically trained in inclusive practice, and we work closely with them on residencies to produce long-term activity for these children and young people. The next slide. So I just want to talk a little bit about how the programme came about and why it came about. So here in Leicester, before the programme started, there was 50,000 children and young people with disabilities and hidden disabilities who were not accessing cultural activity because of the huge barriers that they face to accessing mainstream activity, and the really high costs that it takes to make those activities accessible. So in response, the Attenborough Arts Centre did a 2-year pilot project, and that enabled us to build connections with our city council, with local children's disability services, and begin to build our community. As Marianne's mentioned, all of our work is underpinned by consultation. So we speak to families, children and communities to find out what they need to help us shape the projects that we then produce. I'm getting lost in my thoughts. So the project has evolved and changed over the 6 years because we really learn from the communities and from the children. So one of the things that we found has worked really well is long-term activity, which is why we work with artists on residencies, so over a long period of time, because we found that supports children to build their confidence and to feel safe, and that they trust the centre, because what we found through consultation with families and communities was the reason they face such a barrier to accessing arts and culture is safe and supported in other places. Sorry, I can hear some feedback. So I'm going to move on to the next slide, I think. So I just want to talk about why the project is so important and why it matters. I want all of these. So the children and young people that we work with, our activities and workshops help to reduce their isolation. So a lot of children and young people with disabilities can't access mainstream activity, so this really supports their kind of reducing their isolation. It reduces their anxiety because they're coming to regular activity at the centre, where we've become a safe space for these children and young people. It supports their social needs, again, because they are interacting with other families and in a safe environment, which they are not getting elsewhere really. And also taking part in cultural activities in the city. And this is all based on feedback. So we're always hearing from families and parents and carers that there aren't other activities where they feel safe, where their children's needs are met individually, and that places like the Attenborough Arts Centre are vital to meet those needs because they're not accessing anything. And it's a safe space for these families. And when I talk about safe space, it's things like when they come to see a theatre performance, we create a relaxed environment. So it might be that the lights are on, the doors are open. We don't mind if people are making noises or verbalizing. We create bespoke inclusive dance sessions for wheelchair users. We have music sessions which are multi-sensory. We work with musicians, you know, so even if a child's deaf, they can access music in a multi-sensory way. So yeah, that's really we have a changing places facility, which is a special kind of space for people with profound and multiple disabilities, that they can go to the toilet in a safe space. So we have our building is completely accessible, which is something which families just don't access elsewhere. So that's why the Inclusive Youth Arts programme is so vital to families. And then over lockdown, I'm not going to talk a lot about this because we've done a lot of talking, but over lockdown we had to completely change our approach so that we could reach these families remotely. So we created a blended programme. So what I mean by that is there was activity that was happening through Zoom like this, but we created bespoke, tactile, sensory materials and resources which were sent to families, so that we were still creating this authentic and multi-sensory experience, even though we weren't meeting them in person. And this really, you know, going back to the idea that the fact that they're very isolated, this was increased during lockdown. So we've developed a whole new way of working online. But I don't think I'm going to show you a little film because it just explains it a little bit more clearly and visually.
Attenborough Arts Centre's Inclusive Youth Arts programme has been generously funded by BBC Children in Need for 6 wonderful years. This short film looks back and celebrates some of the magical moments we've shared together. Our programme provides much needed opportunities for children and young people with complex needs and disabilities to be creative, to feel great about themselves and to enjoy being with others. Specifically taking place at weekends and during school holidays, we provide workshops, performances and events here at the Attenborough Arts Centre and at community venues and SEN schools. At the heart of much of our work is our state-of-the-art Inclusive Arts Centre. From its changing places facility, accessible theatre and galleries, to our trained and friendly staff, the centre has created a vital, trusted and safe space for our children and their families. Our programme has always been child-centred, tailored to individual needs of children aged 0 to 18. What this means in practice is we aim to understand individual needs and get to know all of our families, and this informs our activities and shapes what we do. This was Attenborough's first major outreach programme and has enabled us to learn and grow with our community so much over the last 6 years. There have been so many benefits to the children, such as supporting children to access our mainstream events, festivals and theatre performances, safe in the knowledge their needs have been considered.
So this film goes on for 10 minutes. We'll share a link with you later if you want to watch the full thing, but it just gives you a little visual flavour of what the Inclusive Youth Arts programme is really. How do we get out? Okay. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Back to me, guys. So thanks, Hannah. Thanks, Hannah. So our galleries, our 4 beautiful galleries, we've been working since they opened to create new and accessible ways for people to engage with the arts. We've developed games, resources, props, materials. The scrunchie game is a giant, like a hair scrunchie, you know, those things you have in your hair, but it's big enough to have 30 people holding it. And what's great about it is that if you have a visual impairment or a learning need, then you still feel connected to people without actually having to touch anybody, and you can feel the pull, and it enables everybody to be a leader, so you can find different ways to move with it, to play with it, to be in the space. And it's a great icebreaker, and it always goes down brilliantly with little ones. So scrunchie game. Our sensory suitcases. Da, 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 da. This is a sensory suitcase. It's literally covered with a map of the world. So you can go on a journey around the gallery and it's filled with as many things as possible from the actual exhibition without touching the exhibition. So our current show is Bruce McLean's Black Garden paintings, and this is a drawing by Bruce in the suitcase that you can actually touch. Then we've got some things you can smell. You smell that? We've got torches, so you can get really close to the artwork without touching it. We've also got some really textured examples of paint, different ways of seeing, yeah, and other sensory props of materials in here. There's some colour theory, so you can go around and find your favourite colour in the artwork, and lots of little things. And we tailor these for each exhibition. So I just wanted to show you that resource. Our gallery e-tran frame I'm going to talk about in a minute, and the visual timetable that we produce, again, we'll talk about that in a minute. We use a range of technologies, and we have really gone to town on this at times. So it really depends on the content of the exhibition and the needs of our group to make sure that we use the right technology for the right access needs. I mentioned our looking kits, and these are literally tubes, shapes, anything to look through to really focus the mind when you're in the gallery. We have accessible interpretation, so that includes BSL, British language, British Sign Language interpreted gallery tours with deaf artists. And we have easy read as well as braille guides, and again, tailored events and projects. So the gallery e-frame is this, and you can wear it in the gallery. So this is a way to have a conversation with a non-verbal person in the gallery. And what's brilliant about it is it enables people to have agency and choice without making assumptions about what they need in the gallery setting. If you open it up, it's based on an e-tran frame, which is a communication tool used in special schools. And the way that it works, you open out this. You can download this off our website, by the way. This is what it looks like when you open it out. And you cut out this central panel. And then in these blank squares, you can stick some of these stickers. And these stickers were designed by a local graffiti artist, and they're royalty free forever, so anyone can use them, which is brilliant. So these stickers here are about different ways of being in the gallery, things you want to see, things you want to explore. There might be one about different ways of moving around the gallery. We've got some about how you feel in the gallery, what you think about the artwork. How does the artwork make you feel? And this is brilliant because it means that you can have a conversation with someone who may not be verbal or who may not have English as a first language, or it's a really, really good communication tool, and it's portable and tailorable to the needs of your individual and also the content of the exhibition. And we developed this with a special school, Ashmount, and a poet. That's John Berkovich in the photo there, testing the prototype that we developed. And it was developed with Engage, which is the National Association of Gallery Educators in the UK. And we were one of 3 projects nationally to be funded to develop our resource for galleries, and this is the one that we made. So these are just, again, some of the illustrations that were created, again, just to support agency, individuality, and choice in our setting. We tested this quite a lot, and we found that prior to this, if a wheelchair user was being shown around the exhibition by their assistant or carer, it was very much on the carer's terms or the assistant's terms. They would be wheeled around at their pace, not necessarily at the person's in the chair's pace. So this is, again, just sort of making sure that we're checking with people. Do you want to go and look at the sculpture, or do you want to look at that painting, and letting them choose? So this tool lets us do that. I have sort of already shown the sensory suitcase. Sorry, slide in the wrong place. So visual timetables. Our visual timetable. Can I talk about these?
I'll move closer. Can you hear me?
I think so.
Okay. So our visual timetable is a document which we send to parents and carers for every single workshop. So on the left-hand side is an example of one we would send for a digital Zoom workshop, and on the right is one for an in-person in the gallery workshop. And a visual timetable is a really useful tool for supporting people to feel safe and to reduce their anxiety, because in each square it's now and next, which is why the arrows go that way. So the first thing and then the next thing. So they get a sense of what's going to happen, which is really, really important to help reduce their anxiety.
Okay, so we'll just pop this slide in just to show you the kind of feedback that this work is generating. The opportunity for my son to experience aspects of arts and crafts is invaluable. Only by exposure to opportunities like this can he continue to learn and develop and increase his understanding of the world around him. The setting is amazing. Everyone was very friendly and helpful. I look forward to him having his opportunity again in the future. So again, it's about that sort of repeat visit, extending dwell time, all of those things as museum professionals that are important to us about our space being for our communities. This is just a little bit of a slide about the reach of our work. So the last funding year, we had nearly 28,000 people engaged with just our learning program. The venue as a whole, it's over 100,000 people that visit our centre. We delivered, just in our team, 338 sessions, and we worked with 17 educational establishments. SENsory Atelier, I've not really talked about. Again, that's a whole of the presentation, but it's the project that is informed and inspired by the Reggio approach, delivered in 9 special schools, and it seeks to widen participation in the arts. Little Inventors in Space, we worked with an astronaut to develop this project, and various different commercial agencies. Help Art Saves Lives, we worked with the Royal Academy artists Bob and Roberta Smith and Jessica Borsanger to create a campaign which was about people donating artwork in exchange for a donation to a life-saving humanitarian charity. We raised, how much did we raise? I think it was about £800 or something like that. It was quite a lot. So that was a really successful project, and it resulted in a public exhibition of those pieces. And again, the e-tran frame that I mentioned. Yeah, funding, it's important, right? None of this is possible without it. In the last 10 years, we've raised £1.5 million to make all of this work happen. We do a lot of fundraising in our team. It is an area of specialism that I think maybe you don't realise until you work in the museum and arts sector that you need to have, particularly at the moment with in a climate of restrained resources. So I just put this slide here just to give you an example of the breadth of places we go to find funding. Our patron is Michael Attenborough, who is the nephew of David Attenborough. Got to meet David once, by the way. Just saying. And he's a legend, and just really supportive of our work. So we just wanted to pop that in there. And this is just a slide just with some link to our website, where there's loads more resources on there. If you're interested in our approach, then Unlocking the World Through Art blog is our SENsory Atelier website with loads of case studies, resources, loads more stuff on there. Next Gen Creatives is our, again, our group for young people, and they have their own website, and they have a lot of digital exhibitions on there. Reggio Children, again, just go check them out, they're amazing. Disability Arts Online is the national sort of disability arts organisation that we do a lot of co-commissioning with, seeking to support and develop disabled artists in their work. And again, just why does it say recourses? It meant to say resources. Sorry, there's a typo there. But yeah, our gallery resources you can access through our learning page. That's it. We talked a lot longer than we were going to. I'm sorry, Ines.
Thank you so much for sharing with us your wonderful and inspiring work. I already have a lot of ideas on what I'm going to implement when I will go back in Albania. So I'm sure that also for other participants here, they are very inspired with what you presented today. So please unmute yourself if you have any thoughts you want to share or any question or anything.
Yeah, we would love to chat with you. Did you like it?
Thank you. Thank you,
it
Mariana and Hannah.
Hi, thank you. Was it
It
okay?
was very inspiring. Thank you. I really hope there are projects here in Albania. I'm currently working with an organization, and we're trying to develop such kind of projects, including kids with children with special needs and disabilities. And yeah, your projects were very interesting also in the gallery with sensories. The suitcase was amazing. Really loved it. So
you can make one, make one.
Yeah, probably, yeah. It was very simple and interacts with the artworks in such an amazing way without damaging the artworks, but also because kids, not only kids with disabilities, but even normal kids, they would like to touch and see the artworks more closely. They don't know the concept of distance. So yes, it is an amazing idea to involve such things like small details. So thank you, that was amazing.
You're welcome. We really found that whenever I'm with children, I say, you know, we look with our eyes, not with our fingers. And if your fingers want to look, then have something from the looking kit. So you literally put something in their hands and that stops them touching the artwork.
Okay.
And preserves the artwork for future visitors, but also keeps the children safe. Sometimes we have sculptures which are really big or fragile, or you know, we have to be really careful. So yeah, looking kits are a winner.
Amazing.
I don't know if any other person have any question, Maria, Natalie, or Milena. I have a question. It's I think this is it can be like a long discussion. Is there any suggestion, any recommendation that you can give to us as a museum educator or art gallery educator when we start creating, like designing this kind of educational programs? What's something very, very important we have like to, in a kind of way, follow?
I think if you are seeking to be authentic in all aspects of your practice, you can't go wrong. So that means, what I mean by that is making space for people to be how they need to be in your spaces. And if that needs particular resources, think outside the box, think about how you can make that happen. If there aren't resources that you can buy off a shelf, then try making them. Work with creative thinkers, researchers, experts, children are experts.
Yeah,
and be playful and never lose that sense of awe and wonder, because that is what sparks imagination. It makes people want to continue to work with you and to come back again and again. So never lose that sight of magic, the magic in the world, because you know, we are in such a unique industry which gives a safe space for people to imagine, to explore, to think and challenge themselves in creative ways, which helps you to make sense of your own inside world, but also the world outside. So yeah, just always have fun with it as well. I mean, it can get, I mean, it's not always fun, don't get me wrong. If we build in pastoral support as part of our work. I didn't actually put that on the slide, done really. Particularly when we're working with international groups, particularly ones who have experienced a forced displacement at the moment. This is a real issue, and well, it's been an issue forever, but yeah, so we're just making sure that we have the right partners and support systems in place to enable people to be safe and looked after while they're with us, and hopefully want to come back. I don't know if that's a good enough answer or not.
Yeah, thank you. Another thing I just wanted to mention here in Albania, I don't know for other countries, because we have participants from Croatia, Serbia, I think, and also from Ukraine here. There is this difficulty to work with schools because we don't have a calendar with them, so there are some difficulties, bureaucratic things. So how it's the situation in Leicester? How have you started collaborating with them? Can you just give us an example so we can also understand the system, and if it's something that can also help us?
Yeah, definitely. And I would say that this is always an issue. This is always yeah, there probably isn't a quick answer really, but I would say in Leicester we've been really lucky with our cultural education partnership, and those were set up about 4 years ago by the Arts Council. So we're really lucky in the UK where we have each of our countries, so England, Scotland and Wales have their own Arts Council, and they provide funding, expertise and support to build the cultural ecology of our country. And one of the ideas that came from our new chief executive, Darren Henley, was to set up local cultural education partnerships. Now, the point of those was to build a bridge of projects, activity, whatever, between schools, museums, galleries, artists, teachers, but for it to be really tailored to the needs of that local area. And that is critical, because the needs of a metropolitan city like Leicester is going to be really different to the needs of a coastal village or a town over in Norwich or down in Cornwall. So it's about being really specific to the needs of your community and tailoring your activity so that it's relevant to schools. So looking at the curriculum, what the assessment objectives are for different subjects, building those into your resources, giving examples of contextual studies, research, things that can help a school to know that when they come to your setting, not only are they going to get brilliant enrichment and access to arts and culture, it's also going to help them deliver on particular subject areas which they have to as part of their curriculum. So again, it's looking at that way of working. The other thing that we found through working with special schools, which I didn't really know until we started working with special schools, was that many of the children that come to that go to special schools come in on buses, which means that there isn't a handover between a parent and a teacher like you would have in a mainstream school setting. Now, at mainstream schools, parents often take their children to the school, drop them off, whatever. But in special schools, they're picked up on buses, which means that there's a real barrier in communication between the needs of the child and what's being communicated between the teacher and the parent. So this is where social pedagogy is really amazing, because the idea is that you bring all of those people together. You bring together the parents, teachers, local businesses, community groups, anyone that's got an interest in the development of that child together through cultural activity. So taking a show into school and inviting parents in, going to parents' evenings and taking an artist with you, so that they can see that the impact of the work and how that's having a positive impact on the child's learning and development. I can wang on about this all day. I'm sorry. Yeah, so there's lots of things, but it is a challenge, and I would say don't give up. Just keep going. Look for your allies. Look for your local authority partners. Look for charities. Look for non-government organisations. Look outside the box as well. Sometimes the British Council has funding for different countries that you can apply to work in partnership with the British Council. I know that's a little bit different now since of Brexit, but there are other agencies and charities out there. One brilliant one is Clowns Without Borders. So it's a bit like Médecins Sans Frontières, but with clowns, and they go around to different places and take theatre and joy and laughter to places where children are deeply traumatized and really deeply affected by what's going on in the political systems and conflicts. So there are people working. It's just connecting with them. Yeah, I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, it's very helpful. Thank you so much. I think, yeah, this is like the end of the session. There is no more questions, I think. So thank you so much, and I will make sure I will share the recording also with other participants that couldn't participate today. And if there is any question, I will send you an email and let you know.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Have a nice
Nice to meet you all. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.